President Bush quickly signed into law that massive Wall Street bailout after the House reversed itself and approved the legislation. The final vote, 263 to 171, 58 congressmen switched their votes to support the bailout. Joining me now, two members of Congress who stood their ground and voted against the bill. We're joined now by Congresswoman Marilyn Musgrave, Republican of Colorado.
Hello.
Great to have you with us, Congresswoman.
Thank you.
Congressman Brad Sherman, Democrat of California. Congressman, good to have you with us.
Good to be with you, Lou.
Let's just start. First of all, I want to go on record as saying this. You guys demonstrated absolute courage to stand up against what was a tidal wave of lobbying, pressure brought to bear by the Chamber of Commerce, the securities industry, the financial industry. How did you withstand it? Congresswoman, let me start with you.
Well, I just got out there with the no before anybody really hit the hill. Actually, even before any phone calls came into my office, because I could see immediately that the Paulson plan was fatally flawed. And to think that he would come to the Hill, just in a panic, you got to do something, you got to do it right now, to me was absolutely ridiculous. So I got out there with a no and really...
And stood your ground.
Absolutely.
Well, Congressman Sherman, I know you stood your ground. You were circulating information about this legislation with your colleagues, I know. Does anybody in that town who signed on to this understand how unseemly and transparently so they have conducted themselves? And I'm being as kind as I can be. Is there a sense, is there any sort of self-loathing on the part of these people who know that they took an oath to go after the interest of this country rather than surrender to special interest?
Lou, you've got to understand the Wall Street panic machine, the administration's panic machine, the ability of the administration to exaggerate and create panic, and frankly, the role that was played by cable television, certainly not this show, in feeding into this panic frenzy. It reached the point where some of my colleagues think that there was their patriotic duty to make sure to vote for the bill without reading it.
And it's amazing to me that it was just an educated guess. We don't know if this $700 billion bailout is going to work. Clear back in 2005, I was saying we need to limit the size of portfolios of Fannie and Freddie. And in 2007, get Fannie and Freddie back to their original mission, restrict them to that. We saw this coming, and then all of a sudden, Secretary Paulson comes to the Hill in a panic when so much of our market depends on confidence. It was ridiculous.
Congressman Sherman, was this, in your judgment, was it absolutely contrived? Was this utter manipulation? And let's start with first the call by Schwarzenegger today on the day of the vote to point out he needs a $7 billion handout for his state alone in a matter of weeks. Give us your reaction.
Well, Governor Schwarzenegger seems to have bet my state on the success of this bill. And frankly, California is creditworthy, and I think that as long as the administration isn't trying to manufacture a crisis, California will get funded. But having come with that statement and basically said, I want you all to vote for the bill, if this bill doesn't work for California, how's he going to say, well, you've blown your $700 billion, now find another $7 or $10 or $15 billion for California? We've shot our wad, and we shot it the way he wanted us to.
Well, I think where's his good buddy Warren Buffett, who was his financial advisor? It's been an absolute disaster in that state. And with the democratically led state legislature, he deserves considerable, I think, criticism. Congresswoman, let me ask you this. Each of you is up for election, as are all of your colleagues. The Chamber of Commerce has said they're going after every Republican who voted against this legislation. They're going to be feeding 527s. Corporate Wall Street is going to be donating money very quietly. They're going to come after you with everything they've got. Do your constituents understand what is happening in your district?
Well, I don't think that my constituents all realize that 527s whack the daylights out of me. They don't even have to reveal their donors. People don't realize how they can go after you in that way. But But I'll tell you one thing I did. I kept my reelect totally out of my mind when I took the stand on this bill. I was out there with the no before I got lobbied by anybody, any calls coming into my office, because the plan was fatally flawed.
And by the way,
again, today we don't know that this is going to work.
We know one thing, Congresswoman and Congressman Sherman. Within seconds, what had been a 250-point gain turned into a 150-point loss at the end of the day. So far, so good. Treasury Secretary Paulson, President Bush, Nancy Pelosi, and Harry Reid. Oh, and I think we should give a shout out as well to Barack Obama and John McCain. Thank you both very much, Congressman Sherman.
You're
Congressman
welcome.
Good to be with you.
Thank you very much.